We're here today with Charles Pulsipher and Twila Pulsipher, coming to get interview of their life and their. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
You're talking about a life history. You're talking about almost 96 years old. I'm 95, and so that's a lot of years. Another few years will be 100 years old, and I expect to live that long, all right?
That's awesome.
But I was born in Gunlock, Utah. My folks lived there, and then Mom had been a school teacher, and she didn't think much of the school system there. I went to the 8th grade, and then you had to go to St. George to get any more education. So they looked around and decided to move down here at Logandale. So when I was 8 years old, they moved down here to Logandale.
So did you continue school at the Old Shacks area?
Yeah, that's where I went to school down there, and graduated there, and then graduated from Moab Valley High School. Got a 4-year scholarship. I went to University of Nevada and graduated there, and then I've taken courses after that, graduate courses. But it's pretty much, this has been our home through the years. We like it here in Logandale.
Well, I was born in Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and we moved out to Glendale here when I was 3 or 4 years old, and we lived there. I went to grade school up in Moapa. They had a Moapa school, just a 2-room school, and so I went up there until I was in the 6th grade. We had a teacher in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, and then from the 4th to the 8th was another teacher, and she was the principal. And so you went there that long, then you came down to high school in Moapa Valley. But we moved down here when I was about in the 6th grade, and then I graduated from the Logandale School, and then we went on to high school down in Moapa Valley, and there I was there to graduate from there. I was a cheerleader for the 4 years I attended there, and cheered for my husband because he was such a football player and a good basketball player, star basketball player. And so I cheered for him, but I knew him, but that's all. We really didn't start dating until he graduated, and then we started dating. And then he went off to college, and when I graduated, I went to BAC, Branch Agricultural College in Cedar. That's what it was then, and it only went 2 years, except for the ag people, and they went 4 years. And so then I was there 2 years and got my whatever it is, associate's degree, and I went out into business, bookkeeping especially. I loved it, and
She was going steady with a kid in high school in her own class there, and
well, I went steady because no one else dated you once. If you dated somebody once, then
You guys were steady then after that.
Right.
But he got his older brothers got him to fool around with the tobacco and some liquor, and so she dropped him, and I stepped in. So that gave me.
Yeah.
Was it 73 years?
Yep.
That is.
We got 6 kids. Our oldest boy passed away, but we got.
He had a brain tumor, and that was in 2001. So he's been gone. He had a family in Mesquite. His wife had, and he had 6 children, and so they lived over there. And they were rivals,
Yeah.
with us. And he was a good basketball player, and she was a cheerleader there. But anyway, they finally met and got married, and so that the rest was history.
So where do all your kids live at right now?
Right now we have Stace and Paula down here, and
They take care of us through all kinds of help.
yeah, they help us all the time. Then we have a daughter that lives in Draper, right across the street from the temple there. And we have a daughter that lives in Pasco, and a son that lives in West Richland, he and his wife, and a daughter and her husband are there in Pasco. And then we have, of course, Dolores, our daughter-in-law, that lives in Washington City up there. And then our youngest, Corey, and his wife live in Oregon. So we've got them all around.
Had a lot of them filled up.
Were they hauling those off by truck or by train?
They're shipping them out by train, and they'd had a big ice grinder that spray ice over the top of them after they get them in there, and then ship them out. At all different parts of the country for the cantaloupes.
Wappo Valley was famous because it was all over the nation practically. So it was.
I will say desert watermelon, and I grew up in Oregon, and so I didn't have these amenities here. But desert watermelon and desert cantaloupe is some of the best I've ever had.
Oh, yeah, yeah. My dad raised watermelons and cantaloupes, and we just feasted on them all the time. And anyway, it was really good. We used to have more rain than we do now. My dad worked on the highway. He was a supervisor of the highway, and he worked, would be out in the summertime most of the time with floods and everything. We didn't have the freeway then. It was just and when we talk about the cantaloupes, my father helped my 2 older brothers to make a little shed, and they got cantaloupes that were kind of, they called them culls, but they were really good. And that they had worked for this Pete West up there, and he let them have those cantaloupes. And so they'd bring them home, and they'd have them in that shed, and we'd go out by the road, and when a car would be coming, and we'd hold 2 cantaloupes in our arm and put one in our hand and holler, 3 for a dime. We sold them for a dime. and that's the way they made their Christmas money and their school clothes money, and, just everything. And then besides that, they gave Mom and Dad, some for groceries and things. So it was good money.
Yeah, in those days, there were a lot of opportunities for working, for kids growing up. I pulled radishes and worked in, as I mentioned, cantaloupes, and then did milk cows for dairies. Came in a little later, and so all through high school I was getting up and going milking cows, and then going to school and come home after school and milk cows, and so we had plenty of jobs, to keep us busy and to earn money. We had a good life, I thought,
Well, our school days only went to 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock for the guys that played ball, and they'd stay that extra hour and practice. and then went home and went to work. It was just a different situation altogether.
Yeah, when I had to go on ball games, football and basketball, I had a friend. He was younger than me, and I'd hire him to milk the cows for me.
So you had cows, your own cows?
Well, no, my dad did later, but when I was growing up, we milked for other guys. I milked Ed and Wells up there for years, and
Yeah.
I know that it was just part of growing up. You know, we just get up about 4 o'clock, go and milk, and then go to school, come down, take a shower, and go to school. And then after we get home about 4 o'clock, we'd go up and milk again, then come home and go to our activities. We had a lot of things going on in the evenings.
We had movies on the movie house down there, the old Trevo, whatever it's called, and they'd have 2 movies a week. They'd have the same movie on Wednesday and Thursday, and then another movie Friday and Saturday. And that's when you went to the movies. And so we did that, and we'd get out of school to do radishes. Even the girls, we used to go and pull the radishes and bundle them. But of course, we weren't as fast as the boys, but we could do it. We made a little bit of money that way. So it was something we did. And the onions, the little green onions, the boys would usually do the onions. Us girls didn't, but the boys
You could
did.
get paid by the bunches of radishes you had.
Yeah.
They'd come on, count your radishes, and mark them on a slat there, and then after the season, they'd add those up and pay you so much a dozen, you know.
What was
So
it,
it
about
was
3
good.
cents a bunch or something like that?
When I was in high school, I was a sophomore, and we took state football. Well, no, I was a junior. And then we took a state championship in football. I was a quarterback, and the next year we took second place. We should have taken, but we had a couple of guys on there that were trying to make all state, and they hadn't made it before, and so they messed us up. But we had good teams back in those days. We played Winnemucca for the championship and beat them that year. But I was a junior. So
But they played 6-man football then. We didn't have the other.
didn't have enough in the high school to make 11-man team.
Yeah.
So we just played 6-man, and
Well, we
a
played
lot of
Vegas.
schools in the state did the same thing
Yeah.
too, because they were small. So
Vegas. We played Vegas. We beat them a lot of times. Of course, they only had the one school then, but anyway, and then he was elected as the student body president. So his senior year, he was student body president. So
yeah, and when I graduated, I did get a scholarship for 4 years at University of Nevada. There was no UNLV then, and went up there for 4 years, graduated, and then came home to teach school and to marry her.
well, he wanted to go on a Spanish-speaking mission, and so he majored in Spanish and education. And but there was only at that time the war was on, and they only would let you take.
Korean War was on.
They only let you take one person from a ward to go on a mission. The rest had to go into the Army or Navy or whatever. And so his friend went on a mission, so he had never had the opportunity to go. And then we had the Korean War, and both of my brothers were in the First World War, or the Second World War, and they were radio men then. So anyway, they were in the Navy.
Yeah, I had an older brother in the Navy too, and then later on, a couple of younger brothers were in the Army too. Later on,
Did you serve in the military as well?
I joined the Naval Reserve. The recruiter came around and said, "Okay, if you graduate, we'll give you an ensign rating as to go in as an officer." So I joined Naval Reserve, and then otherwise the draft board told me when I graduated from college I'd be drafted into the regular Army, but I joined them and with the promise that I'd get an ensign rating, and then when I graduated, I came down here to teach school and high school, and nothing was ever said about my my naval deal, and so I had to go into Vegas once a week with some other guys to go to the reserve, and finally, after we were married, we were married quite a while. She found out she was pregnant, so I went into the commander and I said, "Well, you didn't give me my officer's rating, and I was pregnant." I said, "Are you going to call me to active duty?" He said, "No, we won't call you to active duty."
We don't call fathers.
So I said, "Okay, I'm quitting the Navy." 4 years later, I got an honorable discharge letter from the Navy. So that was my experience in the
Military.
forces.
A degree in education through college.
Yeah, I got a degree, and then later I went and got a master's degree, and then I got 32 hours above a master's for I was going to get a doctorate, and then I went up to Utah State University in Utah to get the master's, and I was going to get my doctor's there, and then I got going and decided, well, it wasn't worth it. By then I had a bunch of kids.
Yeah, we had 6 kids by then.
To get away in the summer to go. So
Yeah.
So when you two got married, where did you start? Where did you live?
We lived down there on Liston,
Liston,
down
on a street there, back
down
there.
toward the railroad there, and we rented a little home from my uncle and aunt that he had just built, and we lived there for a year, and then my brother had this home, only it was just half this.
Went from this
From
wall back.
That wall back, and he had this home, but he and his wife got a divorce, and so he wanted to go to school to learn to be a plumber, and so he had Dad. He says, if you'll just take it off my hands, then I can go to school.
Take over the
So
payments.
he did. And so after we'd been married a year, then my dad said, if you guys want to just take over the payment on that house, you can have it. So we did. We moved up into this home, and we lived just fine, And then when our oldest boy was about, 12?
Yeah.
We built on here, all the rest of it.
We built that back there and built on here, built a new roof. That was flat roof back there, and we built the whole thing practically over. So it was quite a change.
So how long you lived in this house?
we've been in this house then for, well, 72 years. 72 years in this
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You don't find many people like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a good place, good life, and we went in with her brothers and bought the old wheat farm back there, and then later on we divided it up, and so we've got about 10 acres back of us there that I've got leased out to Hardee's. They use it and pay us so much a year. So
We've got so many shares of water, you know. So we're doing all right.
water's worth more than the land.
Yeah, it is.
One of the questions I love to ask is, what advice would you give to the younger generation? Really, in any category. I guess there's a lot of areas that you could go with that, but what is something to either encourage or tell them to watch out for, or what is some advice that we could tell the, younger generation, like the 16 to 20-year-old?
Well, I'd tell them to get some goals made and then work to achieve those goals, and include in it getting a good education, because they can't take that away from you, and you can usually do pretty well with a good education and getting a job and keeping a job and doing, the things that you want to do.
I just think they ought to be good and faithful to whichever religion they have, just be faithful to it and learn from it.
What's the secret to what's the secret to being healthy all these years? You guys are still driving, you're still mobile, you're still, it's pretty impressive to see.
Well, I feel like if we eat right and we get the proper exercise, and I've always felt like you need to have a yellow vegetable and a green vegetable, and you need to have lots of fruit, good nutritious fruit, and whatever else that you want to put with it. But I think you should have that much, and then get some exercise. I have that. Well, we both have a 3-wheeled bicycle, and that the kids have given us, and so we ride around the neighborhood here, because I can't see very good, and everybody knows it, so they watch out for me too. So anyway, I go around about 4 times every morning, about a half hour. And I used to go 6 in a half hour, but I've slowed down. I can't do that.
Do you take them off any sweet jumps?
Any what?
Do you take your bikes off any sweet jumps?
No.
I tell you, she makes a big old plate of fruit every morning. I think that helps to keep us going. And then, of course, the bike riding. She's more faithful in riding the bike than I am, but I try to keep at it and do it. It pays off, I think.
Yeah.
I've got to change my diet.
Yes, indeed. I need to change my exercise habits.
Well, I've always had such a sweet tooth. I just love sweets, and especially things like cinnamon rolls and, things that are not good for you, but I like to have them, and it's okay to have them once in a while, but you need to have the good nutrition too.
See, yeah, and I remember my grandma and grandpa, they'd always eat bread, bread and milk for supper.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's...
me, it was like, well, I prefer the cinnamon roll or the cake and milk instead of the bread.
Yeah. You can't eat bread and milk with bakery bread. You have to have homemade bread with bread and milk. We just love bread and milk, and we like to have onions with it, or radishes, or he likes grapes with it. Anything like that.
Yeah,
He likes it with just honey.
just like old-fashioned fellows,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like bread and milk with honey in the milk.
Oh.
That is
I just
really
have
good.
honey on a dish and scoop it up.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, have you been here your whole life? Did you go on any missions, or did you later on, or?
With me, like I think I said that my mother wanted her kids to have an education. I was born in Gunlock, and so she looked around and found Bogandale and found that they had good education here. Up there, you went to 8th grade, and then you had to go to St. George to continue on, as I mentioned. And so there was 7 boys and 1 girl in our family, and of course it was quite a move to move into this hot country. It's a little cooler up there, but we all thrived really well and did well, and all of our family have gone into education quite a bit to get a good education. The youngest, he was in an accident, and so he didn't get much. He got a couple of years of college, but that was all. And then he passed away. But
We went on, well, 2 missions, and one was a calling. We keep saying it's a mission, but we went to Mexico on a welfare mission, and then we went to Peru on as a temple mission, and then we were called. He was called to be the first counselor, and I was called to be the assistant to the matron down in Bolivia, and we opened up that Cochabamba, Bolivia temple, and it was wonderful, a great experience. And of course, it's all Spanish, and he majored in Spanish, and I didn't have a bit of Spanish, so I had a rough time, but the Lord helps you, and I finally when we got to Bolivia, Cochabamba, I had to know something. And so I studied hard and was able to direct. I had to train them. I had to know what to give them their assignments each time and everything. So when we opened that temple, Charlie and I were really the only ones that had any temple experience. The president and his wife, he was a sealer. He knew how to do the sealings. He'd been in the presidency in Peru, I think it was, and so he knew.
area presidency was what it was,
But
not temple presidency.
no, we were in the
I
temple.
mean him. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so anyway, so we had to do the training because they didn't know anything, and so we had to train them how to do everything. And so when we went there, President Bingham had us go there got there on a Wednesday, and he had set up a meeting with the state presidencies there and their wives, and then he said, we've got to open the temple on Monday, and so we've got to have you be our workers. And so then we had to train them. So they came there early, like on Monday morning. Well, yeah, they came. We got up about 4:30 or so, got to the temple, and then they came, and then he took the men, and I took the women, and we had to train them to, in the different positions. And so when the first day that it opened, we had the other counselors. They had done a lot of the what do you call it? Anyway, the veil, veil ceremonies, they had done that before. And so, but they did a lot of the, to get the names for them and to teach them how to get their names. And so they would help them with that. And then we'd train them, and we'd try to go in kind of with them to make sure they were doing it right for a while. And we finally got them all about trained, but we didn't have any temple missionaries to help us. Finally, once in the other place up there. Anyway, he called President Bingham to see how we were doing and how many temple missionaries we had. When he says, we have none. And he says, how are you doing it? and he says, we're muddling through. And he says, well, I've got two that they'll be going home in a few months. I'll send them down to you. And so they did that. And so we got those two couples. I don't know what we'd have done without them, because somebody had to be working in the nursery, somebody had to be working in the clothing, and so, all these different positions. Yes. It was quite a thing, but we made it through, and it was a wonderful experience. We just had a wonderful, they say it's not a mission, that's a calling, and that's fine, but we worked hard.
Yeah, we had, like she said, we really had 3 good missions down there. And when we first decided to go on mission, we put our papers in. I put on there, I know some Spanish, I'd like to learn more. She put on there, I don't know any foreign language and I'm not interested in learning.
So guess where we went?
We got called to Mexico as welfare agents to travel all over Mexico and teach welfare principles.
Well, North Mexico.
That turned out, we did really had a successful mission there, and it really worked out well.
How long of a mission was that?
It was a year and a half.
Yeah, 18 months.
Each one was a year and a half. We just finished there, and then we got called to Peru to the temple, and we were just finishing there when we got called down to Cochabamba to that temple.
And that one was supposed to be for 3 years, but the president says, well, you've already served a year and a half. I'll let you go home in a year and a half. And so that's what we did. We didn't
stay there 3 years. We didn't leave them to come home at all then, but we came home after the Mexico mission, we came home for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, had a great life. We really enjoyed life.
So in our family, what we do is at the end of each day, we ask the question of what's the best part of your day?
Oh.
And so in the spirit of that, what is the best parts of your days? And it doesn't necessarily be today, but what has been the best part of your days as you've
throughout your life? Yeah,
throughout your life.
Well, you can answer that one.
Well,
too.
I just think the best parts have been when we've been on missions. We really did. They say you sacrifice a year and a half or so. We felt like it was no sacrifice. We got blessed so much that we feel like we've been blessed and didn't really have to sacrifice much. Our children had kind of especially our daughters, when we were going to go to Cochabamba, and they figured, they wouldn't see us for 3 years again, and we'd already been a year and a half, and they needed us home. The girls just felt like they needed us home. Our one daughter, youngest daughter, was going to have a baby, and she felt like she needed us home, and they were both just devastated when I just almost hated to tell them I knew what they said. And so but the youngest one, she's so funny. She finally wrote us a letter, and it's a classic. It is really a letter. And we've saved it for years, read it to people, you know. It's just so funny. She compared, she and Deanna, Patrice and Deanna, she compared them to being Lemuel and Brent was Nephi, and you know, and the way she did it, it was so funny. We just laughed and laughed and laughed. We felt kind of bad that we couldn't come home, but she made it so it was okay. But
we did come home for a little while when Craig, our oldest boy, Stace called and said, if you want to see Craig alive, you better get home for a little while. So we got permission to come home and spend some time with him before he passed away. Then we went back and finished that mission up.
yeah.
So we were a couple of weeks there to be with him and his family. And then we went on back. So
yeah, it was a tough time, but
we've had a really good life. I don't know anybody could have any better life than we. I mean, she's got such a sense of humor that keeps things happy around, and we just have enjoyed being together more than being with any friends or anything else. You know, I just enjoy being together with each other.
We just like to be home. You know, we go places or have gone, but it's always so good to get home. There's no place like home.
Yeah, nowadays that's more and more important.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So,
What are some of the what are some funny memories similar to the letter that you guys that you remember as clear as if it happened yesterday?
oh,
I don't know. We've had a lot of funny things happen, but I don't know. We've pulled some April Fool's jokes on each other, you know, and things, but I don't know. We just have fun every day.
That's great.
Yeah.
I know I've put on some old clothes and darkened my face and come around and knocked on the door and ask her for a handout and things like that. Or once in a while, I used to.
That's great.
What he did one time was he put his hat on, you know, his cap, and put it on backwards, I guess, or something. And he come to the door and knocked on it, and I went to the door, and he said something and lifted his hat off, and a bird flew out. I said, I hope that thing messed on your head.
I felt it didn't.
That's classic. That's great.
He was always pulling something like that. Talks about me being funny. He's a comic.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
I like the extent that you take those two.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And he used to, when I'd get upset with him, he'd go outside and then come back in and have this ball cap on, and it was all turned up like that, and he had a droopy face and everything. He looked so stupid. He couldn't help but laugh, you know. He just was funny.
She took pity on me.
Yeah.
Hey, she stayed with you, so.
So would you say that's the secret to life in your marriage was the comedy?
A lot of humor. Yeah,
A lot of humor. Yeah. A lot of humor. Anything else you want to know?
What would be some advice that you would want to give your grandkids and great grandkids?
Well, like I say, I would want them to be faithful to the church, to really embrace it and be faithful. Listen to the prophet and follow him and the apostles. That's what I would want more than anything, is that.
Well, I'd second that too, because I think if kids are faithful and growing up, and they're going to have faithful kids, and they're going to be able to have the joy out of life as they grow up, instead of having a lot of problems and things like that come into their life. So we just would encourage them to do everything they can to have a good, happy life in the gospel.
And Charlie, you know, I took bookkeeping. That's what I really loved. And so when we got married, he said, he brought the check home, his first check, and he said, "You're the bookkeeper. I'm going to turn the finances over to you. You pay, you know, do the finances." He says, "All I ask is that you pay your tithing first and vast offerings, and then you can pay the other bills." And I said, "That's exactly what I want to do." So that's what we did. And we always had enough to pay our bills, you know, or anything else. And in fact, one time I'd made out the checks and everything, and I thought, and we got a bill from, and I can't remember what it was, but I thought, we have no money. I don't have any left to pay that bill. What are we going to do? And finally, the next day, I think, I went to the post office, and there in the mail was somebody had owed us some money, and we'd forgotten about it, and it was the exact same amount as what that bill was that I couldn't pay, because I'd paid my tithing and everything else. But we always had enough. We didn't have a lot. You know, we didn't have a lot left over. In fact, sometimes if we wanted to go to the movie, our parents would have to take us, you know, because we just didn't have it. And so, but we had enough to pay our bills, and we never did have to go into debt for things if we didn't want to. So
School teaching didn't pay much in those days.
Yeah.
I don't know if it still does.
After teaching 2 years, then I became principal of the old Logandale Elementary, and then after that I went as assistant principal down the high school, and then I opened up a new school in Las Vegas, new elementary school, and commuted back and forth for about 25 years to go into 3 different schools, elementary schools in there, and so our salary increased quite a bit later.
yeah, we've done well. You know, you have to go in debt for a home, and you have to go. We had to pay $50 a month for our house when we took over payments, and it wasn't until, you know, later, after the kids were in high school, that we got the house paid for. So then we added on, so we had to go back in for a while in debt. But anyway, we really believe in the law of tithing.
You feel that gave you a lot of little blessings throughout your life?
Yeah,
All the little miracles?
yeah.
Lord's been good to us.
Well,
Yeah.
we've had, our oldest boy, Craig, he was in the behind a car that was parked there at my mom's place, and whoever it was that got in, they didn't know he was there, and they ran over him, but he was in the middle, so it didn't hurt him any, And so, but then when Brent, our third boy, when he was about 2, he was a little short guy. He still is, but he was really short and my baby, and so he and all 3 boys were over at my dad's house over here, and when I went over there to get something from Mom, and I got back and got in the car, and the 2 older boys were there with my dad, and I said something about where's Brent, and they said, oh, he's coming there or something, and so I got in the car and I started, and I thought, did I hit a rock? And I just about to back up, and I thought, no, and I opened the door to see what it was, and I had run over Brent, and he was saying, Mommy, oh, I just died. And I picked him up and took him and told Dad what had happened, and he took him in the house, and then we got in the car, went to Overton to the doctor, and he didn't have any broken bones, nothing except scrapes. He was scraped up pretty bad.
Across his stomach.
Yeah, it went right across, like that. And
What a blessing, though, that he was just scrapes. And scrapes heal relatively quick.
Mashed him.
What a miracle.
he and I just, of course, we went down there, and when we got home, I just held him all day long and sang to him, and just held him constantly and rocked him, and even when he was asleep, I couldn't lay him down. I just couldn't.
How old was he?
That was such a traumatic experience.
About 4 years old.
He was 2 years old.
How? How much?
2.
Oh, was that all? 2?
Wow.
Yeah, he was just 2. He was just little, real little. Oh, I was just sick. But anyway, so that was the worst experience of my life. But I used to sing. That was the talent that I had. I could sing.
Had a
Can't
beautiful
sing
high up soprano voice.
Yeah, and so my nephew had a chance or he had a friend that had a radio, whatever it is, a studio, and he says, Aunt Twila, if you'll come in and sing, we'll record it, and then we can give it to, your mom and dad. And so I said, well, okay. Well, the one that always accompanied me was Connie Whitney, and she and her husband were on mission. And so she wasn't here, but I got her daughter to go in with me. But of course, she just played with Connie. She knew my voice, and she knew when to go lower and higher and softer and louder, and Susan didn't. But anyway, so we recorded, and so it's not a real good one because a lot of times the piano drowns me out a little bit, but we recorded that, and so I got that recording of Oh Holy Night. That's the one I sang for 20 years down at the high school and all the time in the ward, you know that. So anyway, we got that, and I've made recording. I've had recordings not only for my mother and dad, but I had it. We gave our kids all one recording of it, so that they've got it. But I don't sing anymore.
Probably used up all your steel. You probably catch some out.
I think that's good for 2.5 hours. This is the one I'm worried about.
Anyway.
Well, thank you for letting us come by.
Yes.
It's
What a joy it's been to be in your home and to.
Well, we are grateful to have you do this.
Yeah.
I hope it's okay.
I think it will be.
Worked out all right.
Yes.
Hopefully we can capture the spirit that I've felt. I know you
Yes.
you felt. Hopefully we can capture that on the camera. Sometimes that's the tough part. But the whole goal is to share this with our families and our loved ones, and you know, there's a lot of stories my grandpa would tell me that I can remember some, I can't remember others. He passed away while I was on my mission, and so I didn't get. I don't have any recordings. I just have memories, which are great. I mean, I think our memories are awesome, but I don't have anything like this, and so it's been a pleasure to come here and record, and we appreciate your time, taking the time out of your day too.
Thank you.
So,
Well, I hope it's been what you wanted.